Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and it is good to be back. I have been horribly sick ever since I went to Amfest. Must have caught a little bit of that monkeypox. If you know about conservative conventions, then you know. But now I am on my way to full recovery. My face has cleared up, and today I want to talk about Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks getting into it with his own employee, Francesca Fiorentini, about his appearance at Amfest. And before you guys ask on whether or not I met Cenk, I just want to say I dashed from an ice cream shop where I was with my friends over to the convention center in order to meet Mr. Uygur face to face for the second time in my life, and it turns out that he was already on board his flight. I missed my opportunity, so yes, I am very emotionally devastated that I don't have another photo with Mr. Cenk Uygur. Now, we're going to get into this whole exchange. I'm going to talk about how crazy it is from top to bottom, and I'm also going to give you some inside perspective, some information that I know from watching Cenk for over a decade on what the hell I think he's doing. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you to everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
You know, I feel like we are in the precipice of a really perilous time of true authoritarianism coming to the United States. And someone like you, who has been such a leader on the progressive left, has such a massive role to play in this moment as a stalwart of resistance, as so many of these centrists are kowtowing to the right. And then I see you on the same stages with, and in the same rooms with, the right-wingers who are mouthpieces of said authoritarianism. And I don't believe that you are actually pushing back instead. And I think there's a project here. You're trying to find points of agreement. So what are you doing, and why are you doing what you're doing?
So this particular exchange between Cenk Uygur and his employee, Francesca Fiorentini, is absurd. It's ridiculous. It involves lefty purity tests, and I assure you, we are going to have fun, mostly at Francesca's expense, but a little bit at Cenk's expense, going through this. But I do want to start off with something positive, something that I found out from Tryman. Thank you, Tryman, for telling me this, and that is this insane fact that Francesca Fiorentini is 41 years old. I always thought that she was maximum late 20s, early 30s, but the woman is 41 years old. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know what kind of adrenochrome she is taking, but I think we all want some of that magical potion that she is on. Now, we got the positives out of the way. We've got the compliments out of the way. Let's go into the negatives, which is Francesca Fiorentini is 41 years old, and she actually thought on Piers Morgan that this joke against a friend of mine, Ryan Girdusky, was actually going to land, and she thought she owned him. Let me play that exchange.
Dollars in tax evasion, Piers. You know you do that like on a Tuesday. Come on. Wait, hang on. Guys, oh, my beeper's going off. Girdusky's a bitch. Oh. Girdusky, I think this is for you.
Is this like a comic? This is giving me a very bad reputation of female comics who people already don't think are funny. I don't know. I think the problem right now.
Except I just own your ass. But you look really cute in your sweater.
You didn't. You made a very lame joke that was like 3 weeks old. Congratulations. You're very funny.
So now that you understand that we are dealing with a 41-year-old who looks like a 28 to 32-year-old with the mentality of a 16-year-old, let us get into this exchange between her and Cenk.
Because I really want to talk about what you are doing and what you believe you are doing. And I want to just explain, you know, by showing, and I want to ask you what you think the goal is of what you are doing. But here was a moment where you were on TPUSA's, on Turning Point USA's conference, and Charlie Kirk, who is a Christian nationalist, he's an avowed Christian nationalist. TPUSA has had wildly racist and white supremacists associated with them, including inviting people like Nick Fuentes to speak.
Hey guys, editing Sean here. So I didn't catch this when I was shooting, but Francesca Fiorentini just lied right there and said that Nick Fuentes has been invited to speak at Turning Point events. I can tell you from firsthand experience that I've seen Nick Fuentes be kicked out of Turning Point events. So the idea that he's a part of TPUSA is ridiculous. In fact, he was one of the #1 people going after Turning Point when their position position on immigration was you get a green card with your diploma. I think he might have been the actual person to label them conservative Inc. in that whole kerfuffle back in the day. And I believe in retaliation for that whole debacle, Turning Point was a big participant in getting Nick banned from Twitter when he was originally banned from Twitter. So unless there's some invite to speak that I don't know about that happened after that, this is just a total lie by Francesca in order to discredit Cenk. In fact, some people criticize organizations like Turning Point and CPAC for letting left-wing journos that come into these events to get clips of conservatives just to smear them without any issue, while banning people like Nick. The feeling is, if you're going to ban people that are too far right, you should not allow the lefties in there that are trying to portray regular, ordinary attendees as too far right.
No matter what you think of his thoughts on BlackRock, here is him asking you about left media. And I gotta say, Cenk, this one sucked real hard for me.
So the setup for this clip is Francesca Fiorentini being very upset that Cenk Uygur was asked a question about the left from Charlie Kirk. She said it sucked more than any other clip, and what she's really angry about is that he didn't take this opportunity in order to thumb his nose at Charlie Kirk and say that you guys are all bought and paid for and all of that. But let us hear Cenk's version of the clip, what he responded to Charlie Kirk with, and then we'll talk about Francesca and what she thinks he should have responded with, and then we'll discuss the reality of the situation.
I think the left has some work to do in developing over-the-top media to be able to bypass the main networks.
Yeah, so we have TYT as a giant network, but we have a lot of great progressive and populist shows that are not part of TYT. That's in the left-wing ecosystem.
I just want to stop and say I'm excited to hear which ones you like, given that you just sort of insulted Emma Vigeland just now. I'm curious which ones you actually do still support that aren't your own, but I'm going to keep going, Cenk. Hang on.
So I don't think that that's the issue. I don't think that there isn't enough shows. I think that there's a couple others. One, on the right, you guys do a great job of coalescing. Okay, so you do a couple of things well. You work together well, and you're more welcoming, if I'm being honest.
We're glad Cenk's here, right, everybody?
And a lot of people on the left know this as well. If you agree with MAGA 5%, the answer you get is welcome, right? Come join us, right? On the left, if you disagree 5%, they go, get out of here, you're a right-winger, you're a fascist, right? But if you push enough people out and you guys welcome enough people in, eventually you win the popular vote. That's what I warned them about, and that's what happened, right?
So Charlie Kirk ends up presenting this idea that the left wing doesn't have the infrastructure or big enough shows in order to bypass the mainstream media in the same way that the right does. And Cenk puts this down to how the right-wing media coalesces around each other, and that is just something that doesn't happen on the left wing because they fight each other, they eat themselves, and that's the main difference between the right and the left online. But in reality, that's not the case. There's plenty of infighting among right-wing media figures. There's a bunch of right-wing media figures like me that probably don't get into this infighting, and the reason why is because I don't see these people as competition, so there may be a little bit more bloodthirstiness on the left-wing side, but fundamentally this misses the whole point of why right-wing media grows in alternative spaces and left-wing media doesn't grow, and that is because the mainstream media, most of our institutions, present the left-wing perspective. And I know a lot of online media people are going to get angry at this, but the fact of the matter is, if you want Trump hate, there is no reason to go on the internet for that because you're going to get enough of that from the mainstream media. If you want anti-white content, you are going to get that on MSNBC, on CNN, on all the major networks. Outside of Fox News, there is no conservative representation in the mainstream media. This is why conservative talk radio always did well and better than left-wing talk radio back in the day, and this is why when people are seeking alternative platforms or alternative messengers, right-wing people tend to do better when everything is even, when everything is on balance. But of course, Francesca has a completely different take, and I'm going to disprove that by talking about Francesca Fiorentini herself.
Okay, so there you are, and you know.
Yeah, love it. Stick with 100% of what I just said there. I'm 100% right about that. So let's discuss.
Yeah, let's discuss. You had your say there, and you've been saying various degrees of that same thing. And I gotta say, like, I watched this whole I watched the whole clip, and it started off, and I was like, this is pretty good. This is good. Like, pretty good interview. I like that you're sitting down. It wasn't bad. This moment, like, truly a part of me died when I watched this.
Wow, I can't believe that.
Yeah. Oh, super. Just like shriveled up and died, floated away into the ocean. Here's what happens. Couple things. He asks you about left-wing media and why there isn't more left-wing media. Which already, as you are there, in the sort of kingdom of turning points, is like, that's such a dig. Like, why are you guys so weak is effectively what he's saying. And instead of pointing out the way that TPUSA has been bankrolled by Republican mega donors out of Chicago and many other places for years now, and talking about how the Daily Wire was funded by the fracking brothers, the Wilkes brothers. Now they're fishing for new, investors, whatnot, but that there is so much money on the right. He handed this answer to you on a platter, and all you said was, you know what? You guys are really good at being welcoming. People just like you. Cenk, they've got all the money.
I didn't say people just
what
like
are you
me. That's very
talking
different.
about?
So this is something that you often hear from people with very immature mindsets. And this is the idea that all the money is on the other side of the media, when in reality, in actuality, it's not the case. And if you were to break it down, there is more money in left-wing media. Again, Hollywood, all these major networks, they tend to lean left. But in addition to that, even in digital media, we had a bunch of major investments from major corporations into Vox, into Vice, into BuzzFeed, all these different organizations that, again, push the left-wing perspective, and even the Young Turks also received those investments. But in addition to that, Francesca Fiorentini used to do a show called Newsbroke. You know who does Newsbroke, or who used to do it, if it still exists? AJ Plus. AJ Plus is an offshoot of Al Jazeera, a left-wing offshoot of Al Jazeera, which is funded by the Qatari government. So this woman was on a show, or on a network, doing a show that was definitely not making a profit for years, that was funded by Qatari funny money, and she's talking about how the right wing has mega donors for a nonprofit, not a media organization, in Turning Point USA, and how the Wilkes brothers, which this is true, invested into Daily Wire. Outside of a few isolated instances from conservative media, there is not all this money flowing around. Trust me, I've been waiting for my major investment. I've been waiting for my millions and billions of dollars in order to launch this operation. But as we are when we started, this is just me in a room in front of a camera with a microphone talking to you guys. I do all my own editing. I do all my own back end of the channel. This is just me. And yes, I'm producing numbers at times that rival people that have corporate financing. Even Breaking Points, which is their big show that Cenk ends up bringing up later in this conversation, was an offshoot of a show that already existed that was funded by The Hill, which is corporate media, because that was something that they set up in order to capture this alternate perspective.
Breaking Point's a good show. Kyle Kalinski's Secular Talk is a good show. He was against me going on MAGA. I haven't seen his video, but Kyle's been against us a couple of times. But I largely didn't hold a grudge on that.
But wait, let me just stop you. First of all, you had a great conversation with Crystal Ball. I think she made some really good points to you I think it was on Breaking Points.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but Crystal Ball is a product of the corporate media. This is somebody who was on MSNBC, ran for Congress, had a controversy that knocked her out of that race. Just because she ended up in alternative media doesn't mean that her origins aren't in mainstream media. This is like saying that Don Lemon or Chris Cuomo, because they started a podcast, are genuine, authentic alternative media figures, or Piers Morgan, or any of the many people, including Tucker Carlson, that were basically bred by mainstream media and translated their popularity to online, are in this alternative media influencer camp. That is just not the reality. These people are mainstream folks. These people are well-financed folks. That's how they got their initial platform. That's how they got their initial audience. And that's what they bring with them to the alternative media space. And again, you could say the same thing about the Daily Wire, heavily promoted by the financing from the Wilkes brothers. I mean, that was an investment into a media company in order to make something profitable. Glenn Beck with The Blaze, Fox News, CNN before that, before he started that venture. So yeah, there are plenty of people that come from the mainstream that are able to secure this financing, but there are very few people on the individual level that are able to capture that sort of financing. I mean, one of the few people that have made it to that level that started out as a YouTuber, as an alternative media figure, is somebody like Tim Pool. But even in his origin, this guy worked for a bunch of different companies, including Vice and including Fusion. So, and by the way, Fusion actually partnered with the Young Turks at one point in time. So in reality, yes, there are some people who get investments. There are some people who are propped up and established by the mainstream media before they go alternative, but there are a bunch of people on the ground that are just doing shows either by themselves or with their family members that don't have this major alternative media investment, billionaires or whoever the hell is behind them. And disproportionately, the companies like BuzzFeed, like Vice, like Vox, and all that, they end up getting that financing as well. Again, TYT, I know it's not a donation to them, but they had investors. Not initially, it was after years, but this was during a boon where they were funneling money into the left-wing media space in order to try to maximize growth of audience on that side. But the thing is, they're always going to struggle with the fact that they have to go up against the mainstream that is essentially going to have the same positions. They might be a little more extreme on the online side. They might be a little more communist than you'll see in the mainstream media, but in reality, it's still the same anti-Trump, anti-white, anti-Republican talking points, and we shouldn't be surprised by that.
That's effectively what you're good at coalescing. And here's my question to you about so that's just number one on the media, because that just stings because I'm in media. But on the 5%, if you disagree with MAGA 5%, they still welcome you. How did that work out for Liz Cheney?
Yeah. So look, is there a part of MAGA that'll push you out? Of course. That's what we know MAGA for.
When do they push you out, Cenk? When do they push you out?
Largely when you disagree with Trump.
Exactly.
So listen,
this is the thing that it's the unspoken thing that you're never saying, that ultimately it's all hunky-dory. Elon can tweet back at you. Vivek can listen to you. But if you defy Donald Trump, the God Emperor, you're kicked out of the castle.
So this is a perfect textbook example of the immature mindset that somebody like Francesca Fiorentini has, because she's making the case that the thing that will get you kicked out of the right-wing media sphere is disagreeing with Trump. But in reality, I've disagreed with Trump numerous times. In fact, I've been among the most realistic people talking about the prospects for his second presidency, where I said it's probably going to be very similar to his first term, so nobody should get their hopes up too much, although there are some positive signs. But the fact that she cited Liz Cheney as an example, who went on to campaign for Kamala Harris and said, why did they kick Liz Cheney out of the party for trying to impeach Trump, and then all of a sudden campaigning for the Democrat? Well, that should be obvious. If you go that far, again, if everybody loves a betrayal narrative, then yes, you will be booted. But the left-wing side is far different. Cenk even talking to Charlie Kirk, saying that he still doesn't like Donald Trump, is getting booted from the Democrats or booted from the left wing, attacked constantly, even by Francesca Fiorentini right here, even though he's saying repeatedly that he's not conceding all that much ground to these people and he's only trying to work together for goals that he has. Now, I have basically not talked about Cenk's non-existent transformation, and that is because I don't believe Cenk has actually transformed in a similar way that Ana Kasparian has. I think that Cenk is trying to kind of appeal to these people to try to bring them into his audience, which is not necessarily a bad thing. We all want to grow. If you believe in your ideas and you think that you're going to produce the best policies, it makes sense to try to recruit the non-believers, so to speak. But I also think that Cenk is largely trying to be nicer to the MAGA side or the Trump side, because Ana Kasparian is going through a genuine change in her perception of these people, and Cenk doesn't want to hang her out to dry. So I have haven't really been attacking Cenk and saying, oh, he's disingenuous and all this stuff that you're hearing from other people on the right and on the left, because I think largely this is driven by personal loyalty to Anna Kasparian, and I can actually respect that, especially when you see on the left constantly there is no personal loyalty. There's backstabbing nonstop. I mean, we talked about Cenk's nephew backstabbing him, backstabbing Anna, all for credibility from loser left-wing figures that would backstab him in a second. So any kind of loyalty from the left wing is respectable, and I think Cenk is doing most of this out of love for Anna, and maybe half of it is, hey, let's recruit these people to our side because I think that I can actually get them on board for whatever issue that I want to push that I might agree with and the MAGA base might agree with, as Cenk is saying.
And no one's defending Liz Cheney. Screw both their castle and the other castle. But Liz Cheney voted with Donald Trump 98% of the time.
So again, this is one of the reasons why I don't take a lot of these left-wing policy wonks or experts very seriously. It's because they're idiots. They cite stats like this, the voted with you 98% of the time thing, when in reality, most of the votes that members of Congress actually take are nonpartisan votes or non-important votes about renaming post offices, and that all gets incorporated into that percentage. So what you end up with is a quantitative measurement rather than a qualitative measurement. If you look at Jeff Flake, who is a big Trump critic, he voted against Trump on key issues, so did John McCain, by the way, and those issues actually mattered. Like for John McCain, the repeal of Obamacare, McCain voted against it, and that was a major blow to Trump's agenda. Conversely, if you were to look at his record on voting on renaming post offices or whatever stupid things that Congress passes, John McCain would have voted with Trump 90% of the time. So based on that quantitative measurement, there should be no dispute between the two. But again, it's the quality of the votes. It's where it matters. It's these kind of things that actually set somebody up as maybe a betrayer or somebody that's aligned. And this should be understood by the Democrats in a lot of ways, because they would go after Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema for not forwarding a left-wing agenda, even though if you were to break down their voting records, they probably voted along with Joe Biden 90% of the time as well. But she throws this measurement out there as if it means anything, and again, ignores the fact that people on the right are not going to support somebody who obviously was never on board with the evil orange man, was trying to work against him, represents the old guard Republican establishment that destroyed the party, the Cheneys and the Bushes, and again, was campaigning for Kamala Harris.
When I talk about Team Miriam, Marco Rubio, Elise Stefanik, Mike Huckabee, and Mike Walz. So those are the four that put in by the neocons put in by Miriam Adelson. In the old days, what I would have gotten, Franny, is, no way, they're the greatest. They're not neocons. You're a liar. Trump picked them. Trump's the best.
So as I just criticized Francesca Fiorentini for her very immature view of politics, I think I have to throw that right back at Cenk, because he's saying, oh, if you would have questioned Mitch McConnell, Miriam Adelson, Marco Rubio, or anybody in that camp years ago, then people on the right would have said, how dare you? You can't call them out because they loved the neocons back in the day during Trump's first term, but it's a huge complete difference in his second term now that people are really seeing what's going on, and this is the change in the MAGA base. And it's only a change in the MAGA base because Cenk was completely unaware of the infighting that was in the previous administration. And I just want to clarify something because people will get mad at me if I don't highlight this. The Miriam Adelson, Marco Rubio group and the animosity towards them doesn't really have much to do with them being neocons in general. It has to do with them being pro-Israel. So the Israel skeptic side of the MAGA movement never liked those people. And by the way, they didn't like them in his first term. They didn't like Sheldon Adelson financing part of Trump's campaign. They didn't like the move of the embassy to Jerusalem. And they for damn sure didn't like Jared Kushner. There's plenty of reporting about how Jared Kushner ended up ruining Trump's first administration from top to bottom. People would call Trump Israel first for for his policy achievements, because oftentimes, to be real, the evil orange man would lead with achievements related to Israel, and people did not like that. They had the perception that the Israelis were controlling the Trump administration. So that has always existed in the Republican Party. That has always been a larger share of the Trump base than other Republicans. And for Cenk to pretend that all of a sudden in 2024, this is the first time he's ever hearing of people who don't like Israel, that's crazy. That's absurd. That's made up. That's nonsensical. And again, Cenk should know better.
Now what I'm getting from the right-wing hosts, which is amazing, and let alone the base, they're all saying, yeah, I hear you. We got concerns about them. We got concerns. Okay. So that's the thing I never heard before. So that is a change.
I mean, seriously, I'm not surprised that Cenk doesn't know better, but he definitely should. Why does he think so many people dislike Ben Shapiro of all people? And when they talk about the Daily Wire, even though Ben Shapiro is not the owner of the Daily Wire, nor the CEO of the Daily Wire, usually they say, Ben Shapiro, something, something, Jewish people, Ben Shapiro, I don't like the Daily Wire, I don't trust them, they're selling out the MAGA base, they're selling out conservatives and never Trumpers, Ben Shapiro, Ben Shapiro, Ben Shapiro. I mean, this is so obvious. It has been around for such a long time. It seems absurd that he wouldn't know this, but it's Cenk, so can we be surprised that neither one of these people know this?
Franny, we're in the middle of that right now. This is the perfect example. So I started the largest progressive network. I've given, dozens of progressives opportunities they didn't have before. I started Just Democrats, et cetera, et cetera. The minute I disagree like 5% on trans issues or crime, everybody's like, right wing, fascist, right wing. Almost every show is saying that. Almost every show. So you telling me that you don't push people out? You're pushing out the movement overall. At least the online left movement seems to be trying to push out the one network that has helped progressives more than any other network, and it's not in dispute. But my God, we have 5% disagreement. So tear it down, tear it down.
There is large portions of this that are 100% true. Cenk did start Justice Democrats, but to be clear, the reason he was booted from that organization had nothing to do with them changing their positions on crime or them changing their positions on trans issues even slightly. It was because they found old posts of Cenk Uygur and they used identity politics, weaponized it against him, and not only did they throw out founder Cenk Uygur, but co-founder Kyle Kulinski also resigned in solidarity, again, a rare show of loyalty from the progressive left after he saw where the organization was going. But again, overall, the point of the left wing looking for an opportunity to backstab somebody, no matter what they did in the past, to a certain extent, over these minor petty disagreements is 100% true. Cenk hasn't really done anything. He's repeatedly stated that he hasn't changed his positions. He's talking about how, now on Francesca's show, that the right wing is flooded with money, and he should have mentioned that because it's all about the money and all that other nonsense. And honestly, when he talks about the things that they agree with MAGA on, it's so stupid and superficial, you wonder why Cenk would even have to mention it. He's like, the right wing, they don't like corruption either. Well, yeah, corruption is a bad word. Corruption is a dirty word. Obviously, people are not going to like corruption. There's not a lot of people that are in favor of it. So saying I'm shocked to find that people on the right in the MAGA base are against bad behavior, it's absurd. It does nothing. What really matters, or what really should put the test to whether this actually has an impact and you could work together on it, is what do you think is corrupt about the system? What do you want to change about the system to make it less corrupt? What are the details? Those matter. Blanket statements about how corruption is too strong or how there's too much money influencing things doesn't mean jack if you don't agree on the solutions.
This is the destructive extreme left that honestly, that portion, that kind of destructive attitude is poison. It's not just poison to us, it's poison to our chances of winning, because we keep pushing people out, keep pushing people out, and then all of a sudden we lost all the swing states and we lost the popular vote. I'm trying to get our side to wake up, snap out of our hypnosis of we hate, and we hate the right wing, and they're all white supremacists, and they're all racist, and they're all sexist, and we hate, and we never go in the room with them, we hate. What the hell happened to us? And no one's allowed to disagree. We're now authoritarian. No.
Wait, Cenk, can I just clarify?
I will never allow the left to be authoritarian And this idea of just hating the other side is poison.
So a couple of things about this. One, yes, there is a lot of hatred being spewed by people like Cenk Uygur for years against the right, labeling them all white supremacists and all that. And I think Cenk actually did an appearance on C-SPAN where callers would call in and say, I support Trump, but I'm not racist. And Cenk would say, no, you're wrong. You are racist.
Yes, I would like to ask this fella, what is his authority to sit up here and spew all that's hateful? All Republicans are racist. Do you live in my household? Do you know me? You cannot sit there and tell everybody I'm a racist so people will come and attack me. Y'all are the problem. Y'all are the ones that's spewing all this hate and dividing everybody.
Lynn, do you support Donald Trump?
Well, we need to go. Yes, I like Donald Trump.
Well, that's why we think you're racist.
So again, this is the difference between Cenk and Anna. Anna usually comes with an acknowledgement that she said something that she disagrees with, and therefore she is actually seeking some kind of better resolution while acknowledging past faults. And Cenk just asserts these things and pretends like we're all not going to remember this, and he doesn't really change up or give an explanation for the change up in his tactics when talking to these people. Also, Cenk is saying, oh, well, the left, he will never allow them to become authoritarian. They're very authoritarian. Again, there's a bunch of people, probably Francesca Fiorentini, that are pro-communist. You don't get more authoritarian than that.
You know what's so funny about you calling the left authoritarian is that you think the left has power. Like, I love that you think
total nonsense.
we are on the precipice of real authoritarianism and real fascism. And you believe that the online left are the authoritarians? I mean, I don't know how to tell you. You sound like Bill Maher and Nancy Pelosi had a kid and it came out Cenk Uygur.
So there's a great irony in the fact that Francesca Fiorentini sounds like she's on the cusp of tears as she's saying, it's shocking to me that you believe that the left actually has power, therefore can be authoritarian, because the greatest source of the left wing's power is this cry-bullying kind of tactic. Of course they have power. They have major influence on all our different institutions. When George Floyd died in Minneapolis, every single media company decided that they were going to put on their streaming services all these different black movies to show the way that the culture was going. People were getting fired for allegedly making supposedly racially insensitive comments. Years ago, people got fired for posting squares on their freaking Instagram. They got fired for not posting black squares. It was absurd in every possible way. And that's not even to mention the rioting that was going on, the most destructive rioting in American history that resulted in very little consequences for the participants in those riots. In fact, in major cities like New York and Philadelphia, those rioters got paid out settlements by those cities. So they destroyed the cities, then eventually they got arrested, released right away, and then they were paid out for their troubles, which is insane. By contrast, when you had the January 6th people, those people were hunted across the country by Biden's DOJ. They got terrorism enhancements for their actions, and don't tell me there weren't attacks on federal buildings. We know there was 100 straight days of rioting in the city of Portland, targeting a federal courthouse, and that just did not have that level of consequences. So we've seen culturally, when the left gets angry, there's a shift in their direction. We've seen it by law enforcement strategy. When the left gets violent, when they start taking political action that is outside what should be acceptable in the US, they get free passes, pats on the head, and they get let go. And again, another perfect example of that is the way that people are reacting to Daniel Penny, who is being smeared as a racist by the mainstream media, versus the Luigi Mangione guy, who clearly and obviously murdered somebody in the streets. And I know there's right-wing people that support that guy. They're wrong to do so. Let me make that clear. But that was an execution in the streets, totally unprovoked, totally unnecessary, completely unjustified. And they are painting that guy as some kind of a hero defending something, despite the fact that that had no influence impact on policy or anything of the sort. It was quite literally terrorism, but because it has a left-wing vein in it, it is being passed off as acceptable behavior. And we see this time and time again. The left has cultural supremacy. They remake all our old franchises, they change it up with their modern politics, and then they call you a bigot for not consuming the product. Again, when you have every institution on your side and then you lose electorally, all of a sudden you play the victim and say, oh my God, we have no power. How dare we? We're just a little baby online left. Well, guess what? You do have an impact. Obviously, we have all these Tumblr genders that are now making their way into policy, and the right-wing pushback is just too slow in order to head it off.
And let me just ask you, though. Let me just ask you. So what shows on the left do you like that aren't on the TYT network?
Yeah, so I said, look, there's a lot of good popular shows on the left that I like, and it's because there are. So Breaking Point's a good show. Kyle Kalinski's Secular Talk is a good show. He was against me going on MAGA. I haven't seen his video, but Kyle's been against us a couple of times. But I largely didn't hold a grudge on that.
But wait, let me just stop you. First of all, you had a great conversation with Crystal Ball. I think she made some really good points to you on, I think it was on Breaking Points. Kyle has, I think, been very disturbed, especially by your appearance with Charlie Kirk. But what you just said there, they've been against us. I really want to just dig into this idea that, because you're a fighter, man. That's cool. That's great. But like, you really do have a very I almost want to call it Bush-like, Cheney-like, you're with us or against us attitude.
100% wrong.
Like you just literally, I love that you're proving my point. But
no,
when
I
say this, you truly, you sound like people are either against you, but if they criticize you, they are not. And yet, here you are, Cenk, telling the entire right wing that all you want to do is break bread with them, that you want to debate with them, but afterward you want to go have a beer.
Yes, I do.
So another tactic that the left wing uses, and yes, these are very similar to cult tactics besides excommunication, is this gaslighting tactic where Cenk says that these people have come out against him repeatedly, which is 100% true. And Francesca's like, Cenk, I can't believe you're viewing these people that are attacking you and calling you a right-wing grifter fascist, somebody who's subordinate to the neo-Nazi Trump supporters, as people that are attacking you. In reality, they're your friends, Cenk. Obey them, comply, get in line, throw your co-host under the bus, because in reality, Cenk, they do love you. We love you so hard, that's why we're smearing you. Again, absurd in every possible way, ridiculous in every way, but this is just the cyclical attitude or the way that they talk to people. Well, they'll target them. They'll say that you sucked, you did all this, you betrayed us and all that. But Cenk, we're not throwing you under the bus and calling you a betrayer just because you disagreed a little bit, just because you talked to the wrong people. I mean, we are doing that right now in your face, but we're not really doing that. We're nice people. Trust us. And if you don't trust us and listen to everything we say, then we're going to cut you off and we're going to have all these different people quit your network and basically tell everybody to get away from Cenk because he's turned on us. He's a turncloak. He's a scumbag. He's a freaking monster who sold us out to the right-wing concentration camps. And if you think I'm joking about that, that is exactly where Francesca Fiorentini is going.
You want to have a beer with people who want to put people in mass deportation camps. They want to deport.
You think we're going to get put in camps? You sound... All right, anyway.
You think I sound crazy? They're starting with Chinese people. That's my family, dog. Like, what are you talking about?
That's such an excuse. Okay, they're going to start with Muslims. They're going to start with my people. Okay,
Sure.
So again, Francesca Fiorentini is talking about mass deportation camps, talking about starting with the Chinese people, which is her family dog. Again, she's 41 years old. There's a reason why I brought it up as a complimentary thing, and now I'm working my way backwards to talk about how she does not represent herself well as an adult. But this is absurd. Also, I do want to point out that it's a little bit suspicious that this is clearly and obviously obviously a Chinese communist spy. Just kidding about that. Everybody relax. It's just a joke. It's comedy. But she also worked for the nation of Qatar. I'm just saying, it's a little bit suspicious that she's spreading rumors about these Chinese people concentration camps that nobody has proposed at all whatsoever. In fact, most of the migrant crisis has been largely Latinos, largely Venezuelans, with some notable entrants from China. But again, nobody's talking about that unless her family is a bunch of illegal immigrants that have snuck in here under the Biden administration. So what is this woman even saying? Also, nobody's sending them to deportation camps. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Deportation means we send you out of country. Camps means we keep you in country. Does that make sense? Do you understand that, Francesca Fiorentini? You spy for the Qataris? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So stop hiding behind vulnerable communities.
I'm hiding behind vulnerable communities.
Yes, you are. You're using them as human
standing in
shields.
front of vulnerable communities.
No,
James,
you're
what
not.
are you doing? What
No,
are you doing?
I'm in front of vulnerable communities.
Uh-huh,
I'm the most endangered, Franny.
By tweeting at Elon Musk? Please
whatever.
don't help me. Come
Okay,
on,
so this
James. This
is
is
total
so
BS.
sad. That's
Okay,
so
so
sad.
let's break.
Well, let's take it down. Let's simmer down. No. Simmer down. I'm asking. Let me just ask you real honest to God.
You already said 12 things that I need to respond to. Can I respond to them?
No, I want to ask you this one question.
Of course not.
So I just want to say for everybody out there in the audience, neither one of these individuals is standing in front of vulnerable communities. Just so you guys understand, they're both doing a podcast. They're both performing. The one who's performing the most is Francesca Fiorentini, again, bringing up that I'm about to cry kind of an inflection in her voice, saying that she's standing in front of vulnerable communities, those poor, innocent Bebe Angel Chinese people who do better than most demographics in the United States of America. Francesca Fiorentini, she's standing in front of them. She's saying, you're not gonna touch them. I'm gonna defend you because I got my little stupidly named podcast and this is what I do. And then Cenk's like, oh, the Muslims, they're coming for us first. I gotta protect us from the Muslims. And again, I will just point out that I'm Latino. You guys know that. You guys are aware of that. I'm not standing in front of the vulnerable Latino Bebe community or anything of the sort because I understand that if you enter this country illegally, there is a chance that you will be deported for entering said country illegally. Now, again, we can't ever get to the important conversation, which is what do we do with people who have been here much longer than that are more integrated into our country? How do we pick and choose who we want to go, who we want to stay? Because these people are talking about deportation camps when we have all of these people flooded into our country, defrauding the asylum system that need to go first, and we're probably never even going to get past those people, if we're being perfectly honest, during the first Trump administration, even if he goes super hard on deportations.
Let's talk about you going on these shows. Just simmer down. Let me ask you one question. Imagine if Kamala Harris had won. Okay, she wins. She wins the popular vote. She wins obviously the Electoral College. Incredible, first female president, blah, 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 all this stuff.
So look, this is going to be a stupid question. I want to be 100% clear about that, but I do like the way that this anti-establishment person describes Kamala Harris winning as incredible, first female president, woman of color, and all this stuff, when Kamala Harris was quite literally inserted as the Democratic nominee via a coup by the establishment and by Democratic megadonors. And Francesca Fiorentini was one of the very few people who were dumb enough to support Kamala Harris before this. She was somebody who was trying to convince everybody that she could really speak to young people and she had this on lock. And she was pushing this because, again, she has a very establishment mindset, despite the fact that she's trying to say, I'm so out there and I'm just independent, getting all this money in my past from Al Jazeera, which is funded by Qatar. And you know, there's just no money on the left-wing side. Nobody's been propping me up. I'm allegedly a comedian. I've never said anything funny, and somehow I have a career at age 41. But, you know, I'm just saying, like Kamala Harris, they're just aces. Beautiful, perfect, wonderful woman.
And Tucker Carlson started making all these rounds on really progressive leftist shows, went on Kyle's show, went on my show. I'm like, who the hell? Started reaching out and wanting to talk and wanting to come to agreement on things. What would that look like to you?
Yeah, it would look like Tucker was trying to reach out. Tucker's a bad example because I would be surprised if he did that. But okay, yeah,
Well,
no
right.
problem.
What would it
But I
look like
wouldn't
to you, though?
care.
So Francesca is so delusional and ridiculous that she doesn't realize that right-wing media figures would love to go on left-wing shows. We're not afraid to do so. We enjoy it, actually. The problem is that you can almost never get lefties to do any kind of events or anything of the sort. Again, I know people that manage 3 different types of events. They all have the same problem time and time again, and that is recruiting left-wingers to appear on stage with people on the right. So they're the ones who have this issue. I never have this issue, and I often get topics that I don't even want to talk about, but you know what? It's an event. Usually the organizer's a friend of mine, and essentially the lefties typically make all these crazy demands on what you have to talk about and all that for them to be there, while everybody on the right is significantly more chill about it. In fact, I have talked to these people, and a lot of these lefties demand to be paid giant sums of money in order to appear at events that right-wing people do for the cost of their flight and their hotel. This is the reality. So Tucker Carlson doing a left-wing media tour, the only thing that would be shocking about it is that the left-wing media would have him while he's on this tour.
I know it can feel online like a circular firing squad. I understand.
$1,000,000,000%.
Hang
It
on.
happens every time.
I know it does. So I come from movement backgrounds, right? I've been in many spaces since the global justice movement in the early 2000s, then the anti-Iraq war movement. I've been in a lot of organizing spaces. I have been in more organizing spaces, far left spaces, than I have in campaigns, political campaigns, for example. So I know those spaces very well. I know we can often over-police one another. I know we can tear each other's throats out. I absolutely concede that. I do agree with that. At this moment, sad to say, that's not the biggest fish we have to fry.
So right there, we have the false concession from Francesca Fiorentini, where she's like, listen, I know circular firing squad, it's just hard, we over-police ourselves, and, I get that, but, so I'll concede that to you, Cenk, as she then goes back to saying that she's the real victim, and that's the more serious thing, and you shouldn't worry about that, you shouldn't talk about that, which, again, is another dirty, manipulative tactic from the left, which is whenever you bring up an issue, whenever you bring up a problem, they say, oh no, this imaginary problem is much bigger, so we have to deal with that first. We can't address your actual issue, your actual concern, what's in the conversation, because we got to talk about how I'm at risk personally, and Cenk, you just don't care hard enough about Francesca Fiorentini.
At this moment, sad to say, that's not the biggest fish we have to fry. In fact, we're in, again, a moment just before Project 2025 will be implemented, and people like myself, people who are on the streets demonstrating for Palestine, will be recommended for deportation, among many other things. But of course, I guess maybe I'm using that as a shield. I don't know, according to you. But I did want to.
So she's saying that she's going to get deported for protesting for Palestine because of Project 2025 and the evil orange man coming in off the top rope, going to throw her back to her home country, when in reality, her home country is Palo Alto, California. This woman was born in the United States of America. She's not on the verge of being deported or anything of the sort. She's a Hollywood brat, raised in a woke environment, never thought outside of her bubble, ended up in activism and all these different various cliches her whole life, and she's talking about how she's under threat of being deported, and then saying Cenk's a bad guy. Cenk, by the way, who is actually an immigrant to the United States of America, he is a naturalized citizen of the United States of America, because he doesn't believe that Francesca is going to go to the deportation camps and then be deported all the way back to maybe 15 minutes from where she lives right now because she was born in the United States of America. Again, this is the absurd level of gaslighting right here. There's actually a clip that's going viral, or that was shared, where Francesca is talking to Cenk like she's breaking up with him, and it's hilarious. Maybe I'll play that for you right now.
Yeah, man. I gotta say, it's like it's not an understatement to say that I've lost sleep over what's been going on. That I've been really upset, angry, and like wounded if that makes sense to you.
But overall, as you can see, the unbalanced nature of the left wing is on full display right here. It's ridiculous, it's absurd, and considering Cenk isn't saying anything profound, he isn't making the movements or even conceding on key points and admitting that he was wrong in the past like Anna Kasparian is, I think that this is much ado about nothing. But of course, I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the madness from Francesca Fiorentini against her boss Cenk Uygur. Till next time.